Hey, good morning. We're going to do a quick video on the Pythagorean Theorem. I'm going to introduce it, reviewing all the basics. You probably have seen it already, but hopefully, if not, you can keep up. We're going to mostly get into these two parts right here, how to determine if a triangle is a right triangle by using the Pythagorean Theorem. And then if you're given a triangle that's a right triangle and you have two sides, I'm going to show you how to find a third side in the most basic of situations where we're only dealing with perfect squares and we don't have to simplify square roots. That'll be tomorrow, the square root part. So first off, what the Pythagorean Theorem means. What it means is if you have a triangle and it's a right triangle, that means that this would be a 90-degree angle, right? That if you took this side and you made a square out of it, so square, all four sides are the same, all the angles are 90 degrees, right? The area of that square plus the area of the other small square, so if you took a side over here and you made a square, and you made a square out of the longer side, the area of these two small areas right here, these two small squares, they add up to be the same as this square. One activity that you could actually do in class if you had time, you could make a right triangle, measuring very carefully to make sure it's a right triangle, and then very carefully make two squares, and you could actually take and cut these up and it would fit in here perfect. So anyway, the formula for the Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that means the sum of the two squares, the two small squares, is equal to the area of the big square. So a couple things. These two are the short sides, right? And it doesn't matter which one you call A or which one you call B. This could be B and that could be A, right? But this is the long side. It's always the long side, and it's called the long side of a right triangle. It's called, of course, the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always what we call opposite of the right angle. Okay? So again, the hypotenuse is the long side, and it's always opposite of the right angle. Okay? These two short sides, they create the right angle. Maybe you haven't taken geometry yet or don't know what an angle is, but an angle is created in this case from these two sides. That place where they intersect is called the vertex. So anyway, the two sides, the two short sides, create the 90-degree angle, and that 90-degree angle is opposite of the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longest side. And the two short sides, this could be A or B, this could be A or B, it doesn't really matter. So again, Pythagorean Theorem, if I make a square from these two short sides and I add up their areas, it's going to be the same as the square made from this long side. That's what that means. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Is a triangle with sides 6, 8, and 10 a right triangle? Well, to figure that out, we're going to use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The thing is, the hypotenuse is always the long side. The long side is the hypotenuse. 10 is going to be longer than 6 or 8. So all I got to do to really be careful to make sure that I put 10 squared for the hypotenuse. Now the short sides are 6 and 8. Doesn't matter which one you put first. 6 squared plus 8 squared, right? And then you just have to do the calculations. 6 squared is 36. 6 times 6 is 36. And 8 squared is, of course, 64. If that equals 100, because 10 squared is 100, then the answer is yes. This would be a right triangle, if this is true. Turns out 36 plus 64 does equal 100. So your answer is yes. Now, even though it's a yes or no answer, the work, your instructor probably wants that work to be shown. Now let's try another example. Let's do a triangle. Let's say it is a triangle. I'm going to just write that symbol right there. Is a triangle with sides, let's say 5, 7, and 10, a right triangle. So, for the sake of time, I'm not going to write all the words. It's a 5, 7, 10, a right triangle. So here, again, the hypotenuse is the longest side, and these are the short sides. So starting with the formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All you got to do is plug everything in. So 5 squared plus 7 squared does that equal 10 squared? If this is true, if this plus this equals 100, then it's yes. If this plus this does not equal 100, the answer is no. It's not a right triangle. 25 plus 49, does that equal 100? It's not 100 squared, just 100. Ignore that right there. So this is 74. That's not equal to 100, so the answer is no. A triangle with these three sides, 5, 7, and 10, would not be a right triangle. So, moving on. Last one. Let's say that we had a triangle like this. One side was 12, the hypotenuse is 13, and again I know it's the hypotenuse because it's opposite of the right angle. And the missing side, now we got to figure that out. Alright, number one mistake that people make when they first start with this is they want to put the missing side right here as C. But C is always the hypotenuse. So it doesn't matter which one of these two sides I make A or B. So either way, this is how you do it. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Just plug in your numbers, and then we use, well, we're going to simplify this. This is 144 plus B squared equals, now it turns out 13 times 13 is 169. Okay? So, using the order of operations, PEMDAS is the order of operations. Now when we're solving, we use inverse operations, so we actually do everything backwards. We got two things to get rid of here. We got the 144 and we got this exponent. Okay, now if you know how to solve, then what I'm saying probably makes perfect sense, and if you don't, you might be a little confused. But for now, for just solving these kinds of equations, it's always the same two steps in the same order, and it matters. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to subtract that number from both sides every single time. So 144 subtracted from both sides, because what you do to one side you have to do to the other. Now 144 minus 144, that's just 0. You don't need to write plus 0, you can just write B squared. See, we're actually adding all of this together. So 144 minus 144 is 0. 0 plus B squared is just B squared. 169 minus 144, that's 25. Okay, now the second thing you got to do is, second step is always the same. You take the square root of both sides. Now what square roots are asking is they're asking what number squared equals the radicand, the number on the inside. Okay? Now you don't really have to understand everything about square roots to do this kind of problem, and the ones that are going to be in today's assignment, they're all going to be perfect squares. Really, really easy. So over here I have a list of perfect squares. If you're taking notes at home, you can pause the video and write down this list. Maybe your instructor lets you use a calculator for this part. I don't know, it's up to them, but it's really important to be familiar with all of these perfect squares. So perfect squares are 1, 4, 9, so on, so on, so on, and these are the numbers squared that give us that. So like for example, let's talk about 225. 15 squared equals 225. So the square root of 225 is asking you what number times itself is 225. Well, that's 15. Okay? So here, 25. The square root of 25 is asking what number times itself is 25, and it's of course just 5. So the missing side would be 5. Now the reason we can use the Pythagorean theorem here is because of that symbol. That's a right angle. If this symbol wasn't here, then we couldn't use the Pythagorean theorem to solve this equation. Alright, now next video we'll go ahead and talk about more about square roots and how you would simplify if you had something like this when you were all done. The square root of 50. Square root of 50, well, that's a problem because 50 is not on our list of perfect squares. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next time. Anyway, I know this video was quick, covered a lot of material. If you found it useful, please hit like and subscribe. And in the comments box, you can always ask me questions, and I will get back to you. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good day.